Capital Convo on AM 690 and FM 94.3. The Answer is brought to you by the Savio Group of Companies, with the belief that we can solve all of our state's problems, including housing, by understanding the issues. We are ready to talk, and we want to hear from you. Join the convo by calling 833-296-TALK. Capital Convo is now in session.
Aloha Hawaii, this is your State Representative Elijah Pierick coming to you live from the Salem Media Studio in Kalihi, Oahu. If you're listening on Maui, Big Island, or Kauai, aloha. I'm joined by my guest, Casey, all the way from Virginia. He works over near Maryland in the D.C. area. Casey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So, folks, you might be wondering, okay, who's Casey? Why is he on the air? I met him through a friend named Jack. I've known Jack since I was 11 years old in Oahu. And Casey, tell us a little bit about what you do for a living.
So I am a government contractor. We talked about that a little bit last night. And it's kind of hard to get into the details of what exactly I can and can't say, because if you say too much, it's almost like, oh, so you're a representative of this organization, and I just work there. But I deal in imagery analysis, and it's always hard. We can talk about the intel side without getting into the specific details of what I do, but it's something I always have to tiptoe around. But that much I can say. So yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing that much. So what has been your impression of Hawaii so far? You've visited, this is your first time in Hawaii?
Yeah.
So what's Hawaii like for a mainlander?
For a mainlander, I can tell you I don't want to go back to the mainland. I do not. I would much rather live in Hawaii than live in Virginia any day, hands down, especially in the DC DMV area. So Hawaii's beautiful. I absolutely love it.
Great. Yeah, Hawaii definitely is beautiful. So were you born and raised in Virginia?
No, I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, just north of that in a very small town. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe, are you more on the left or right side of the political spectrum?
I'm definitely more on the right side. I think through the years and through the experience of meeting so many people through the Navy and just through the different types of jobs and work that I do, I tend to go more towards the middle ground, but that's only because I want to see a common ground between the far leaning left and the far leaning right. But if anyone ever had to make me pinpoint, it's definitely on the right. I've definitely been conservative my whole life. So yeah.
Nice. I love how you have a conviction, and I also like how you're open-minded to try to find that middle ground and have a common ground with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though I'm a Republican state representative, I have read the memoirs of Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, Nancy Pelosi, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, because I want to know how they think so that I can better understand how are the people that are following them thinking, so that I can lead their followers maybe in a different direction.
Right.
Maybe in a direction that might in my belief, help everybody more.
Right. Do you, when you're reading these things, though, do you find things in there you're like, hey, that's actually not that bad?
For sure. Jimmy Carter has a lot of compassion for those in need. I love that. Nancy Pelosi communicates well with the people that are following her, so I appreciate that. Bill Clinton is really smooth. Like the way he talks and the way he just has a way of going about himself is like, wow, okay. A lot of people thought he was going to become the president, and it's kind of self-explanatory in my opinion.
Right.
Let's see. Hillary Clinton, I'm surprised she made it as far as she did. Not a lot of, I wasn't so impressed by her books.
No, I wasn't either. Well, I haven't read her memoirs or anything like that, but I won't. So there's your answer. I don't like Hillary.
Yeah. I'm glad that I can say I've read her book.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I can, in my belief, have the humility to pursue what she knows so that I can connect with her base. But I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. And coming from the intel side of things, most of the people, and I do mean most of the people that I've worked with, we got, really angry, really heated about the whole, emails, Benghazi, and all the stuff that went on. And because we knew that if that was us doing those things,
You'd be in prison.
straight to jail, straight away. You're gone. It was probably the day before we even committed the act. You're in jail. That's how
They
fast we
sense
get
it and
locked
they already
away.
get the handcuffs ready.
Like, this guy's about to commit espionage. Get him. And we're gone. But, because she's a high-ranking politician and her husband is an ex-president, they get a lot of leniencies that we don't get. So, yeah, just strong distrust, distaste for her. And I'm not alone in that thinking. I know some people like to say, oh, she's not the only one that did it, which obviously we know. We've seen Trump pedophiles, wherever. We've just found them with Biden in his garage or something like that. And everyone has their own private server. That doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't mean that you get to be held to a different standard just because you're at a higher position than the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. So I want to invite our listeners to contact the Office of Information Practices, OPI, and you guys can say, I would like a copy of all of the emails and work phone calls from Rep. Pierick's office, and that is yours to have through the Office of Information Practices. So just Google them. They're a executive department of our state of Hawaii, and so you get to have access to that. All of my emails, all of my paperwork at the Capitol. It's not a secret. We're supposed to have open, transparent offices, so
absolutely.
Everybody please access that. Now, if you're calling in, please dial the number 833-296-TALK to join our conversation. That's 833-296-TALK. And you can ask myself, Representative Elijah Pierick, or Jess, Mainlander, a question. So, Jess, what would you say?
That's my wife.
The Mainlander?
No, Jess is my wife.
I'm sorry, Casey. I had dinner with both of them last night.
Yeah, we were both there.
What is the main thing on your heart that you feel like all of America needs to know?
Oh man, that's a rough one. But I know for me personally, the thing is the way that we treat each other. It's one reason why I never liked, talking politics. It's a lot easier being like in a military environment, because people there, we just don't get offended. It doesn't matter what you say to us. We're not crybabies about anything. So you can, call us whatever you want to our face to try to offend us, and we're probably just going to laugh and agree, But when we talk politics, because we're grown-ups in that manner, we're always understandable of people's differences. But in any other environment I've ever been in, people immediately get offended when you're in the slightest disagreements, and it becomes a shouting match and name-calling and, name smearing. And I just bring that up because, it seems like everything for the past few years, certainly since even Obama got into office, and since then, everything has been super political, and people have just been, there's been riots, there's been people mowing down, protesters and vehicles and whatnot. There's just been a lot of violence. There's been a lot of hate that I've seen. And I think it's senseless. Just because we disagree doesn't mean that we have to hate each other. And as a Christian, I don't know if y'all typically talk religious values. I believe in one of the greatest commandments is, to love thy neighbor. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that was Jesus' second greatest commandment. Just behind, he said, honor, love thy God. He says, love thy neighbor. And one thing that I believe firmly is, like, how can you love thy God if you hate your neighbor? Because God is your neighbor. He's all of us. So love your neighbor. That's my thing.
Yeah.
That was long-winded. But.
No, it's okay. Cool. We got like 55 minutes.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing with us, your heart. The one thing that you want to share with all of America is for us to get along, that our differences don't have to be our dividers.
Exactly. We can still be neighbors. And I know I was saying love that neighbor, but I'm just saying literally we can still eat dinner with each other. We can still laugh about something that we both enjoy. And not everything has to be political. Not everything has to be my way or the highway. Yeah.
That's good. So today is Monday. This past Saturday.
It's a Monday.
By the way, there's this really funny comedian. I think his name's John or something, or Ryan. And there's this line. He says, "It's a Monday." And my brother and I, we always say that. It's a Monday.
Wait, no, I think it was a YouTube video.
Ryan George.
Is it a person that you know?
I don't know him personally, but he's a person on YouTube.
Oh, there's Olin Rogers, who I was just quoting, and I'm a huge fan with Olin Rogers. I actually just spoke with him on Friday.
In person?
No, not in person. It was like a consultation thing where, because I'm a writer and he's a creator, I paid to get his advice, to get his knowledge on how to move forward. I know that's a completely different topic, but he has this funny video It's like a story time video where he was in this Target scaring literally scaring the crap out of somebody. And it's just a funny video. He's a very lighthearted guy, very PG in his stories too. And his famous line from that is, "It's a Monday," because he's got nothing going on this Monday. So he messes with this guy.
Yes. I'm talking about the same thing.
That's Olin Rogers. Yeah.
Okay, I got the name wrong.
Yeah. He's hilarious. He's a joy to talk to as well.
And they have that whole scene about going in the restroom of Target.
Yes. Yeah.
I got nothing to do. I'm scotch free.
He's like, I'm Scotch taped. I'm so clear. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So Ryan George is a different guy, I guess, that my brother and I like. But yeah.
I think that might be another YouTuber.
Okay.
But I'm just bad with names. So.
That's great. Okay. Well, let's switch gears a little bit to politics.
Yeah. Sorry. Back on
This
track.
is all cool. So I got an email and text message from our Republican caucus minority guy. His name is Tom Kuntz. And he asked me, "Hey, Rep. Pierick, have you given your caucus bill votes yet on our caucus package?" What that means is basically there's a majority party and a minority party. Republicans are in the minority in Hawaii. And we get to introduce really an unlimited amount of bills, I think, from our caucus as what we believe best represents the conservatives in our state.
Right.
And so there's only 5 of us that are practicing as Republicans in the House of Representatives, and we get to kind of craft that bill package, that collection of bills. And so today I voted on all that. And so the top 2 of those bills relating to the economy would be income tax reduction. And basically there's a tax in Hawaii called general excise tax. In Virginia, you guys might have sales tax.
We do have sales tax, yes.
So a little bit different in Hawaii. And we have our food and our medical services are taxed. Is that the same way in Virginia?
Food is medical services. I think so. I think everything in Virginia is taxed. So when you say for food, are you talking about like the raw product that you're buying to cook at home? Or are you talking about like what you get at a restaurant?
Some states, like if you go to Walmart, you don't have to pay taxes on the food.
Oh, no, we do.
Okay.
Sales tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Covers it. Yeah, I know. I don't like taxes.
In Hawaii, we are believing that can someday be eliminated.
I would think that's a good thing, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's one of the bills we're trying to advocate for. The third top priority for me would be to basically make welfare, not just you get born, you get welfare in Hawaii, but you actually have to apply for it with some qualifications. So here's the specifics on those qualifications. This law would clarify that residents of Hawaii may not collect welfare without proof of a job and proof of satisfying a required residency period. Currently, to receive state assistance in Hawaii, you must, number 1, be a resident who does not live in a public institution, and number 2, be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. Number 3, have an income below the Department of Health standard of assistance. And number 4, have assets totaling less than the DHS standard. Work-eligible individuals must participate in the First to Work program to receive this form of welfare. Other forms of healthcare also imposes work requirements with limited exceptions. Basically, what I'm trying to get at in this bill and our caucus as a whole is making it to where laziness isn't incentivized in our state, because there's a lot of people that are like, why should I work? The state will just give me anything. Yeah. So if we can add some more qualifications to get welfare, it'll make it to where the lazy people are kind of flushed out of this system.
Right. I definitely, it's like a 50-50 for me, because like I agree, where I don't want someone to just get money to do nothing. There's levels to it. I mean, I've seen it, especially in Memphis, Tennessee. There's almost like a system to it. There are people that like, they know exactly what to do and how far they can stretch before they get cut off. I know that sometimes people need help, and I'm always for helping someone. But you have to be able to show that you're trying. You have to show an effort to take care of yourself. And I believe that firmly. So I believe welfare is a good idea, so long as welfare is not being abused. And it kind of seems like that's what's going on here. When it says the DHS standard of assistance, is that talking about basically like a poverty level? Because it also says, it mentions an income in here as well.
That's a great question. Can I get back to you on that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll ask you another question, and while you're answering that question, I will research that,
Gotcha.
and then I'll answer the question. So let's move on to housing. So one of the top priorities of housing that I wanted to kind of champion is relating to deregulation for housing construction. So there was an emergency proclamation on this, and it basically makes permanent the temporary deregulation on housing construction from Governor Green's emergency proclamation to speed up construction to make it cheaper. So we have a governor, his name's Josh Green, and he had an emergency proclamation that said basically certain laws in Hawaii are going to be suspended to make it easier to build houses.
Right.
That sounds great on the surface.
Yeah, in theory,
Yeah. And then other groups are like, wait a minute, what are these laws that he's suspending?
Exactly.
And so the people that are big advocates on preserving Hawaii history, they notice, wait a minute, some of the laws that he's suspending might make it to where they'll build a house over something that was sacred in the Hawaiian culture.
Right.
So like, whoa, let's not do that. Others like, wait a minute, there's some environmental protection laws that this emergency proclamation also suspended. Wait a minute, maybe we want to keep the environment safe. So there's a lot of voices on this topic. This law would kind of look at this a little bit further and kind of make it official in statute that these regulations would be gone. Not necessarily like dishonoring Hawaii history or dishonoring the environment, but what laws are just for red tape's sake. So what are your thoughts on that? And give a long answer so I can research this
long
question.
answer for research. Yeah. So I'm going to relate kind of to like Virginia in a little bit because you say like, construction will be able to happen faster, happen cheaper and whatnot. Well, one thing that kind of like increases the rate for construction, like the how much it costs is, and construction people, please don't try to cut my head off when I say this, but I worked with a construction guy at one point who, had since moved on, joined the military, got into Intel just like I did. And they take as long as possible, as long as it's allotted, because they get paid for it. They could do it faster, but why? When they're given, a year to do something, why are they going to do it in 6 months when they could? And then they have this thing where it's like, okay, now that time is almost over, they get into downtime or crunch time. I can't remember exactly what he had called that term, so I'm kind of speaking a little bit ignorantly there. But and then they would get the job done quickly, and you would start to see things happen. And I say I'm going to relate to Virginia because there's a interstate that is always under construction. It's called Route 66, or is that it? Yeah, and it's always under construction.
Meaning from East Coast to West Coast, or just Virginia's portion?
Just in that portion.
Okay.
That, like from as much of it as I can see when I'm driving from the Nova area, literally right there by DC, all the way to where I work and the Reston area, construction. And here recently, finally, after living in Northern Virginia for 8 years, ever since 2015, it finally has an HOV lane and it's done. But even though there's still like construction in certain areas and whatnot, but it's like, oh, they must have hit their crunch time. It's sped up. They finally finished something. So when it comes to cutting, certain laws to help that speed up, I agree. Like, yeah, you don't want to, trample over someone's, historic area, destroy something that has a lot of value to the local community, because that's just going to piss them off. And then you're going to get vandalized because they're like, you're going to get picketed. You're going to get, protests. You're not going to come over here and destroy this historic land. It has a lot of value, a lot of, culture in it. So, yeah, you got to be careful with those things. But I also believe maybe you should put some laws in place that says, hey, if you can do this job in a certain amount of time, do it in that time. I don't know how to say it exactly, but
How about just get the job done?
basically, that's what I want to say.
Take the hill.
Get the job done. And maybe that's the government saying, like, or, whoever is hiring that construction is like, we know you can do it in this amount of time, so don't take 2 years. If it doesn't take 2 years, don't be lazy. Get to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Speaking kind of like assimilating what you just shared. Well, first let me answer your previous question.
Yeah.
DHS stands for Department of Human Services.
Yes.
And so they have standards when it comes to how services are provided for humans and things like that, their welfare.
So, yeah. So I know the DHS part, what it was talking about, that standard. What is that standard? Is it talking about, because it mentioned a amount of income. So I should have clarified when I was talking about the DHS standard, I was talking about what is that standard? Is that standard being considered the poverty line, where like if you don't make this much money, you're considered impoverished?
That's a great question. I recommend our listeners to Google the Department of Human Services and find out what income bracket they need to be in order to qualify for certain benefits.
There you go. That's if they're transparent. They tell you.
That kind of information is available out there. Like if I make
Yeah.
$1 million a month, I'm not going to be able to probably collect SNAP benefits.
I would hope not.
Yes. And just for my conscience sake, I probably shouldn't visit the Hawaii Food Bank.
Yeah.
Even though there's programs where like we don't ask what your income is, just come and get.
Right. Yeah. I think that's actually cool that they do that, though.
Yeah.
Come and get food if you need
Yeah.
food. I really hope people aren't abusing that just to save a dime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People do that, though.
They do.
It's gross.
It is pretty gross. Going back to like that take a hill analogy, my experience in the Air Force, I got to work with people in intel that basically they would interpret a target and they would brief the commander, hey, this is your target. We recommend you click the red button on this house because it's housing these bad guys. And here's the potential collateral damage that might be impacted if we hit this house. There's a house 2 doors down that might get some shrapnel, and these good people live there. And there's all these like risk-benefit analyses that these intel guys give their commander. And so ultimately it's up to the commander to say, yes, push the red button, take out that house with the bad guys in it. And so there's a lot of factors involved in making a decision. Is this the target? Is it not the target? Will I hit the target? Will I say yes? And then come to Hawaii. Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And what will the implications be? I think there's been a lot of quotation mark commanders, in this case politicians in Hawaii, that have said, yes, push the red button, or yes, let's pass the law. And now our state's kind of screwed because of those bad laws. And I think that's poor leadership on those past politicians.
I would agree. And I think I spoke to you at dinner a little bit, and I won't get into in detail. Actually, no, I don't think I did. Where I currently work, which I won't say what organization or agency, but I had very strong distaste for how the leader of that person, the person that was in charge of making our policy, our hours of work during COVID, how he ran the ship, because that person decided to not do what everyone else was doing. And it was just very frustrating. And the entire workforce was upset about it. And when the entire workforce voiced that opinion, like, hey, this is bad, we don't like it, they freaking doubled down on it. And they're like, no, you don't understand. We're leading the way. I'm like, yeah, right into the garbage can. Where do you want to go? And so I 100% agree that when your politicians that are in charge are passing bad states and it's negatively affecting, your state, your local area, your businesses, why aren't they seeing that? Why aren't they responding to that appropriately? Are they even listening to the locals at that point?
Yeah, good point. Very good point. Let's move from cost of living over to...
Cost of living is way too much, by the way.
How are you liking the price tags on everything you're buying out here?
Okay, on that point, I'm not actually paying attention too hard. I did for gas. When I filled up that big old SUV that I rented, I was like, well, that's expensive. But so I haven't really noticed a difference between like food items, like a bottle of water, here versus in Virginia. Have you noticed a difference? Because you're the more, experienced person locally here than I am.
Having been raised here since I was 8 years old,
Yeah.
I'm normalized to the crazy prices. Whenever I visit the mainland, whether it's a conference or relatives, I'm always at ease with the prices. Like, wow, I was in Disney World in Orlando, Florida this July, and you would think Disney prices are higher, but
Through the roof, yeah.
But I got this beautiful salad bowl with chicken for like $8.95, and it was a big bowl.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that probably would have cost $15 in Hawaii, and I don't even get Mickey Mouse.
I did just pay like almost $20 for like I think it was a burger, and it was a delicious burger. Don't get me wrong. I love the place that we went to eat, but yeah, like that burger in Virginia most likely would have been like $14-15. So it's not too big of a difference, especially not one to make me like, check my bank account. But yeah, there's a slight difference, but I was just talking about, the cost of living as far as like renting a house, buying a house, because as we spoke, to me, it almost seems impossible with how expensive some of the places are, some of the houses are. And I see that in Virginia a lot too. I think it's unjustifiable, but I know a lot of people justify it when they say location, how the ease of access to everything around you. I just don't buy that.
Yeah.
It's still 4 walls, still bricks, wood, whatever else is building the frame, nails, holding it together, screws, bolts, all that stuff costs exactly the same. Well, Hawaii, it's a little different because you have to import everything. So I can understand things being a little more expensive at that point. But when you look at a house that doesn't look all that great, and it's $1 million. That's the exact same thing in Virginia. Why I told you about that little like rectangular house across the street. There's no reason why it should be $500,000, but it is. It blows my mind.
So let's say you want to buy a house for 200,000 square feet, or maybe just 1,500 square feet in Virginia. The area you live.
Oh yeah.
4 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, enclosed garage. How much would that cost?
Like the number that popped in my head instantly was like $750.
Oh.
I think that's a very easy number, especially because you said 2,000 square feet, which can be relatively big for a house. You have to think that in Virginia, the more space you have, the more money you have to pay. Because like you could take an acre of land, right? And that acre of land is going to be, because I just saw one that I thought about maybe buying and building a house on. It's $260,000, $70,000 just for the acre of land. Then what are you going to build on it? You know, and it really depends on like how much square footage you have that you're going to build on it. Also depending on how you zone it. Maybe you can only have 3 bedrooms, you know, yada, yada, yada. But those models start for like a good, decent model close to $400,000. So you're already at 680, like right there off the bat or close to it. I should lower that down to say like, you know, 660. I jumped $20,000, but it's very easy to do that in Virginia. And then when you're looking at that and you think about the houses that are already built, like I found one that I thought was like, okay, this is comfortable, but it was small. It was a small house with 5 bedrooms. I don't know how they fit that in there. Maybe there's another level. And it was 650, like on the dot. And that was in Alexandria. And I was like, that's, I guess, doable.
Alexandria is nice.
I don't want to spend $650 though. Because I don't think, even though Alexandria is nice, it's not worth $650. That same house is probably worth maybe $200 somewhere in Memphis, around Memphis. And so maybe I'm just super biased because that's where I grew up. And I want that simple, you know, more country life again, rather than the hectic, crowded, overpopulated Northern Virginia.
Yeah. Well, I can empathize with you in that irk and that frustration of seeing that price tag of 600, 700,000 when you believe that you can get it for 200,000 in Memphis.
Yeah.
Our listeners in Hawaii are probably thinking to themselves, I would love to buy a house in Hawaii for, that price.
600.
Yeah, but a house of that caliber, enclosed garage, 4 bedroom, up to 200,000 square feet, that would be more like 1.1, 1.3 million.
Yeah. That would be the case if it was like in the DC area, you know, right there in the very busy, like close to, well, I can't say close to the White House. It's not really close to the White House, but, you know, anywhere in DC, you instantly hit like a 1 million mark. If you had something of that caliber, especially if it was like recent construction. If you go anywhere that's considered historic, it can easily hit that mark. I remember seeing a house that I thought was like really cute, had some nice little updates to it, and it was at $1 million, but it was like, it was probably closer to Arlington, and Arlington is where you start to hit like historic areas and whatnot. And that's way too much money for me.
Well, hopefully you can afford what you want in that area. And in Hawaii, we're trying to advocate for cheaper housing in the Republican caucus. And so that what leads us to our second bill relating to housing, which would include creating a streamlined housing permitting process. So what are the details of that? And for those of us just now tuning into our radio show, this is the Hawaii House of Representatives Republican caucus advocating for a potential bill that we would introduce in the legislature that would represent most conservatives in Hawaii when it comes to trying to make housing cheaper. And that description is require cities and localities with unmet housing goals to use a streamlined permitting process for new construction. This was a tool in California that has helped address the state's affordable housing crisis. The 2017 law helped to get 18,000 new housing units built between 2018 and 2021, and about 75% have been affordable for low and very low income households. The expected process has led to projects moving to construction in about 6 months that otherwise would take years or longer. The expanded measure would require that in jurisdictions failing to meet their housing targets, projects eligible for the streamlined process must set aside at least 10% of the units as affordable to very low income thresholds. So Ho'opili, that's a new neighborhood in Eva Beach. So like when you're driving back to your place you're staying in Makaha, you pass by Eva Beach. That used to be agricultural land, so it's a certain zone for just farming. It took the developer, D.R. Horton, about 11 years to initiate the permit transfer process to get it, or I should say zoning change, all the way to house built, ready to be sold. 11 years.
Wow.
It's wrongfully slow in Hawaii.
That is insane.
And if you're speeding up the process, there was an area in Aiea that they converted. It was an old sugar mill area, or an old mill, and they switched it, rezoned it, and now they're going to be building affordable housing for Kapuna, older people. That took 5 years. And the people in the groundbreaking ceremony were like, isn't this amazing? We're breaking time records. Now, mind it, while I'm talking story with all the big shots, if you will, like the senators and representatives and city council members and then the housing developers and then the people that work for the city and county that helped all make this possible, I'm not going to say who it was, but the person that was there said, we've had a groundbreaking for this exact site, for this exact project like 10 years ago, but the project fell through. So somebody maybe have said, it's a 5-year project, and I posted on my social media, it was on the newspaper, oh, look, these people are breaking the ground. Isn't that wonderful? They're making housing affordable. There's so many stories behind the stories, and that's, we already tried this, and it failed, and we're trying it again. So people might say, oh, look, the rail's so amazing. It's transporting it's 3,000 passengers every single day, so they don't have to sit in traffic. Yeah, but there's a story behind that. It's cost $12 billion.
Wow.
So for $12 billion, we could have probably bought, I don't know, how many Uber subscriptions for free or bus passes for free, things like that.
Yeah. Aren't they still working on that?
Bus passes?
No, not the bus passes, the rail that they built.
Yeah. Have you enjoyed our traffic?
Yeah, I realized how bad traffic was here. And I know it was like at a certain time, but today I've been sitting in traffic a good bit and driving, back and forth to different places, following Jack around. And it's heavy. It is heavy, and it's nonstop so far. Like once you're in traffic, you're just there.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I hate traffic.
And maybe like there's some folks that are used to their TV having static, or they're used to maybe a certain family member cooking bad food.
Right, yeah.
For a lot of us in Hawaii, maybe we're used to it. It's like, all right, I'm going to leave work in Kailua. I'm going to leave work in Hawaii Kai, and it'll take me an hour and a half before I'm home in Makaha, or 2 hours. And that's just part of life. I don't believe that's the standard that we should hold to. So that's why, as a Republican caucus, we were advocating for faster commutes, cheaper housing, things like that.
Yeah. If, let's say there's no traffic, you have a completely open interstate. How long would it take to get from one side of Hawaii to the next?
If you're going from Makaha, like let's go to Yokohama Beach, like all the way to Kaina Point, and you want to go all the way to, let's say, Makapu'u Lighthouse, I would say that would take about 2 hours without 2 hours if you're going the speed limit.
Okay.
I mean, people have probably gone faster, but maybe they're pushing the speed limit.
Yeah, I've gone faster. That's me. I'm the guy.
You're the guy. Okay.
Sorry.
The politically correct answer for me to say to you now, after you've sped in our state, is leave the state. So.
Well, you got to define how much is speeding, because I thought I was going like 10 over at one point, and someone flew by me, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
He's got somewhere to go.
Probably also another mainlander.
Oh, man.
No, there's local people that speed too, and our HPD gives local people tickets too.
Yeah.
So
I try not to, because I know that, like, first off, I don't want to get a ticket in Hawaii because I'm not coming back. So, they're definitely going to hit me with the highest ticket they can. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know, but So I was asking that question because I went to like a much smaller island. Obviously, there's no real relation here because once again, it's much smaller. But I was able to travel from like one side, if you look at it, horizontally, from the farthest point to the farthest point in 45 minutes. And I was like, there was never really any traffic there. But it's also not Hawaii, Hawaii, I would have to say, is like much more beautiful. And that's why it's such a desired spot to go visit, as everyone wants to come see Hawaii. And I was asking that because I was like, oh, is it just like, am I just crazy for thinking that it's insane for everything to take like an hour and a half to get to, because mostly it's traffic. But then when you say, no, from this point to this point, if there is no traffic, it's about 2 hours of just, casual cruising. And that kind of put into perspective how big Hawaii is to me.
Yeah.
At least this island of Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know.
And our speed limits are a big factor to that. So once you're past Hanama Bay going eastbound,
Yeah.
and you're heading over to Makapu'u Lighthouse, it's like 35 miles an hour, sometimes
Yeah.
45. And then once you're on H1 in town, it's like 45. That's kind of slow. Once you've gotten off of H1 on the west side and you're on Farrington Highway, it'll get down to 25 and 35 for a long time, all the way to Kind of Point.
Yeah.
So if you're going the speed limit, you're going to enjoy the view.
Well, the view is absolutely stunning. I mean, bar none. I haven't seen views like this anywhere else. I haven't traveled much in my life, so this is why I'm like traveling more now. But yeah, Hawaii is absolutely gorgeous.
It is pretty gorgeous. So we're going to change the topics now over to government proposals, like how can we make the government better? And we want the people of Hawaii to join in on that conversation. So if you're listening on the radio or if you're streaming, you can call us by dialing 833-296-TALK. And if you're watching us live on Instagram, you can also just type in your question in the chat box. Okay, so let's talk about being a proactive government. In the Hawaii House of Representatives, the Republican Caucus is wanting to introduce this measure, proposing an amendment to Article 3, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution of the State of Hawaii, State of Hawaii, not Constitution, to establish legislative term limits. So our state constitution has multiple sections. Third article talks about legislator. So basically how you become a legislator. So if you're listening and you want to become one of me, all you have to do is have lived in the state for 3 years, be a registered voter, and be at least 18 years old. That's basically the requirements to run. Now, to win is another conversation. So we want to make an additional restriction on those legislators, an additional restriction on myself, and that is a term limit, be it 12 years, 8 years, 16 years. Let's have a limit. Do you have thoughts on that?
We talked about that last night, but we were talking obviously like in White House, and what I would say big gov, big brother, the speaker and the things like that. I absolutely believe in term limits. I don't like the idea if one person, especially if they're like not working to try to find any kind of progressive like movement. Progressive is kind of like a scary term sometimes when you talk politics, but I just mean like helping us out, helping us move forward, as a country. If you're not trying to make things better, and you've been here for 20 years, maybe you shouldn't sit in that seat anymore. Let someone else in that's got better ideas, especially if they're better ideas. I 100% agree. I don't think anyone is entitled to their seat and, their entire life until they retire or until they pass away. Because once again, you hold up, progression. You hold up just new ideas, especially if you're set in your old ways, I think we even talked about that a little bit last night too.
Yeah. Let's talk about that more. So I want to give some life examples of how in the Hawaii House of Representatives we are experiencing maybe some people being set in their ways, maybe some people thinking of themselves, gosh, if I was a little bit more agile with my job, I wouldn't say this, I wouldn't do this. So if you go on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, look up Elijah Pierick, look at the last video I posted, or second last video, and it's called How to Buy Off a Legislator. And basically, it's a pretty simple method during campaign season. Put a max donation into the person that's running, preferably have it come from an interest group or a union, and then have a conversation with that candidate and say, hey, if I give you $2,000, will you vote yes on such and such measure? They'll be like, yeah, I want your $2,000, because that'll pay for basically one mailer to get sent to all the district constituents, all the residents, all the neighbors. And so if you get enough of those guys saying that, you've got yourself a win. You won the election because you've got enough mail. Now, my opponent actually, he got a lot of endorsements. I'm not going to say how he got the endorsements, but he got lots. Basically, each endorsement oftentimes means $2,000 donations.
Yeah.
And those same unions, those same interest groups are going to be lobbying at the legislator, right after the election to say, hey, please pass this bill. So I only got the police union. I got the Hawaii Housing Union, Hawaii Realtors, and then this brand new one that just popped up is called Hawaii Conservatives. They all endorsed me, and that looked like $2,000 donation, newspaper article ad, and then mailers on behalf of, so like the Hawaii Conservatives, they sent out mailers for me. So I actually didn't get their money. They didn't send me the mailers to send out to them. They did it for me, basically. I already have like a preset, of what I believe is going to help the state by knocking on 8,000 doors to get their input, and then I just assimilate that into my answers of what are my principles. And so when I was interviewed by those three unions, there was a connection. There was a congruency there. I didn't have to compromise. When I got interviewed by other unions, I definitely, I guess, answered the questions wrong based on my principles and their goals, and I didn't get the union support. All that be it to say, you can have very minimal union endorsement and still win in Hawaii. So everybody listening, have hope. Still run for office, even if you're not the guy that's in alignment with all of the system.
Yeah. I mean, you never get it if you never try.
Yeah.
So
go try.
you've always got to shoot your shot. You know?
Yeah. We had 400 people run for office last year. And
Wow.
of course, we had 18 new people get in the House. I don't know how many new people got in the Senate, but several.
Mm-hmm.
So 18, 20 out of 400, the odds aren't the best, but
No?
you can still get in.
It's there though. You know?
Yeah.
So it's once again, you just never know. If you don't try, you're not going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Might as well try.
Yeah. Definitely try. The other main goal of the House of Representatives, at least from my vote on the system of how to improve our government, would be electronic voting. So if you go to the U.S. Capitol, which I'm sure you've driven by that building all the time, living in the Virginia area,
Yep.
you see video clips from C-SPAN or elsewhere on the news, and the different congressmen, they've got these 3 buttons or maybe 4 buttons at their chairs. There's not assigned seating at Congress, and they just sit down and they can put in it's like an ID card. So if I'm Congressman Ed Case from Hawaii, I have my Ed Case ID card. I put it in the slot for the card at Congress, sitting in any chair I want out of the 350 something, and then those 4 buttons of yes, no, are assigned to that ID card, and then I vote yes, no, and then there's this big Tron near the gallery section of the Capitol where everybody gets to know what Ed Case voted on, yes, no, and it's pretty transparent. In Hawaii, it's not that transparent. It's by voice vote, and I think we're the only voice vote in the state, and in the country, and we're the only. You have to stand up and say no in order to have a no vote. And in our Eastern culture, that's not popular. People don't say no a lot in Hawaii because that's not part of our culture. So in order to put it on the legislator, which consists of many Eastern people, to say you have to stand up and say no in order to go against this bill, our shame culture doesn't permit that. It's not the best. So if you're okay just being the loud guy and telling everybody no, which I'm okay saying that because if I see corruption, I want to expose it.
Yeah.
I do it.
Yeah. I'm definitely okay being the loud guy too. That's last night.
That's why I wanted you on the show.
Right. I've been a lot toned down. I'm saying this for the listeners. I'm a much bigger personality in person. But no, I completely agree with the transparency. I think, when you're a public servant, you serve the public, and the public deserves to know what's going on, especially what's going on behind the closed doors, where a lot of things happen that we don't get to see. And it's just disappointing that someone, I think it says a lot about their character when they don't want that transparency to be there. Oh, let's do this. It's going to help out. People are going to be easily able to see what we said, see our votes, and see what we stand for. And they're like, no, I don't want that. I think it says a lot about your character if you don't want people to know exactly where you stand. You're lying a little bit, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to make any claims. But yeah, I firmly believe that. And I do firmly believe in calling out hypocrisy, calling out corruption, because especially in today's times, we just don't have room for that. You know, it's just, things are too volatile today. So yeah, get it out. Drain the swamp. I'm just kidding.
Come on, somebody.
Oh, can I get an amen?
So I'm with you on that. Hopefully our caucus will introduce it. But my vote is
caucus.
1 out of 5 votes when it comes to our team.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the other team members say, and we'll introduce the majority of our caucus's suggestion. Yeah. So another one would be reining in the governor's use of emergency powers. This, interestingly, made a lot of progress last year, 2 years ago. Governor Ige was our former governor, and basically this bill that said the governor can't just declare emergency proclamations and shut the state down for COVID at his discretion. We need some involvement in the legislature in order to keep this going. That's a very distilled down version of that bill. And it passed the House, it passed the Senate, it goes on the governor's desk, and the very governor who's creating all these emergency proclamations, you think he signed the bill or didn't sign it?
I think he didn't sign it.
He didn't sign it. It didn't become a law. And so Hawaii is still advocating for that in our Republican caucus.
Wow.
We won't give up.
Yeah. Why didn't he sign it? Did he give an answer?
If he did, he probably would say something to the effect of, I realize the powers granted to me by the Hawaii State Constitution when it comes to emergencies, and I want to protect our state by allowing me to serve you in the best interest that I believe is manifested when I declare emergencies.
Right.
My translation of that is, I want to be a dictator and let me control you.
There you go. I want that power.
I need it.
He's got the Infinity Stones. I'm just kidding.
So if we have a caller that wants to call in, please call in by dialing 833-296-TALK. Again, that's 833-296-TALK. Let's move the conversation along and talk about crime and rehabilitation. How's the crime where you're from?
It's there and it's going up. So like every day you're hearing about something else. And in my area, it's pretty simple little things that are like, porch pirates, taking something off your porch that's not theirs, trying to rummage through your vehicle. I actually heard that that's an issue here too.
Mm-hmm.
Jack is always like, don't leave anything that's visible. They'll smash your window.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have smashed windows necessarily where I'm at, but they're definitely trying to go through your car. And sometimes they're trying doorknobs too. So,
Mm-hmm.
it all just depends. My neighborhood personally is a little bit safer, but we have had porch pirates in my neighborhood. Thankfully, haven't been struck yet. So
I hope you stay safe.
I hope I stay safe too. Well, I hope they stay safe. If I catch them. Yeah,
Let's actually dial into that. So you said that in Virginia, there's a unique law to where if you're the homeowner, let's say you're watching your favorite TV show, Duck Dynasty, and then somebody barges in and he wants to change your channel. He probably doesn't want to just change the channel. Let's say he's trying to steal some stuff and hurt you.
Right.
If you have your gun with you and you start shooting at him, let's say if you maim him, you just shoot his foot, and now he's crippled, you have to pay for his medical bills. Is that right?
That's a possibility.
Oh, okay.
Because what's going to happen is that person's going to sue you. And then, because I actually, after we talked about this, I was like, let me make sure I was right about that. And I couldn't find anything exactly stating it, which is kind of annoying because Virginia has, it didn't exactly say castle doctrine or stand your ground, but it's basically that where I have the right, if you enter my house, to shoot you and use deadly force if I think that you're going to harm us. That's where it's like, that's where you're going to fight. That person's going to say, no, I wasn't coming in to harm anyone. You broke into my house, brother. Like, what else am I going to think you're doing? The door was locked. Yeah.
But it's November.
What, did you just need to use my bathroom that bad? You got the runs or something? Come on, man. But, yeah, so that's where you start to get into that, messy ground of okay, am I going to have to pay this guy's medical bills? Because most likely that person's going to sue you. I also say that because when I was growing up, well, not when I was growing up, I was already an adult, joined, the Navy reserves and everything, and came back. And I tried to be a police officer for a short amount of time. And even the police officers there and, Atoka, Tennessee, which is close to where I lived in Brighton, Tennessee. It's basically right by us. They always say better be tried by 12 than carried by 6. Because as the police department, if they shot someone and that person didn't die, they're going to have to pay their medical bills.
Can you break that down for us, that phrase, 6 and 12?
Oh, 6 and 12, so your jury versus your pallbearers, basically. You'd rather be tried in court for shooting and killing someone than take the chance of someone carrying you because you were killed. So, yeah, tried by 12 versus carried by 6. I would much rather, and let's say maybe it's not me you got. Maybe it was someone else in my family. I'd rather shoot and kill whoever's broken into my house than my wife getting hurt or her father or her mother, even my dog. I value my dog far more than I value the criminal that just broke into my house. So, yeah, I'd rather be tried in court versus having me die or someone else that I love die. Mm-hmm. Because you just don't know. I'm not saying that with 100% certainty. They're going to come in and they're going to kill someone or do something violent. I'm just not going to take that chance. There's a term which involves cussing, so I'm not going to, but I don't do that. I'd rather be safe than sorry. So, yeah.
Okay.
My house is my house.
There you go. Your house is your house. For those listening that don't want Hawaii to become the Wild West and they think that by owning guns, it makes the community less safe. I was at Starbucks in Kunia about 3 weeks ago, and there was a guy in there who was, was barefoot. He had military pants on, no shirt, had a lot of tattoos. Maybe he even had a bandana on. He had maybe a pencil around his ear, and then he had a pocket knife, this, just a dagger or something, in his back pocket. And I thought to myself, he kind of gives off a scary vibe. Probably not a lot of people want to walk up to him and say, "Hey, man, how you doing?" Want to get coffee? They're like, gotta stay away from that guy. Maybe people even call the cops. Like, oh, that looks fishy.
Yeah.
And then I tried to think of it through a constitution of the Second Amendment. Like, he has a right to bear his arms. There's other things involved with that package that looks a little fishy. You know, shirts off, got tattoos, no shoes. He's walking into Starbucks. Yeah, so it's definitely a dicey conversation. It's definitely it's one side often wants no guns, the other side wants everybody to have guns. There's a middle ground.
Yeah.
And so that's where background checks come into play. Mental health assessments. Some people are totally against any background check, any mental health assessment. Others like, no, that's manageable. Most of the Hawaii coalitions on guns are for the background checks and the mental health assessments.
Yeah. I think mental health assessments are very important because as we saw, there was an old case a long time ago. Dude kind of lost it, killed a woman. I'm trying to not get it confused with other cases because you hear about this so much, you know. But he was having a PTSD break, and I don't think it was a female officer that he killed, but he just like randomly gunned down some innocent person, and someone assessed the fact that he had, you know, these types of weapons and he was mentally unstable. I don't want to say insane because as a veteran, you know, I know people, my father had bad PTSD and whatnot, but my father should not have a gun. And I will say that with 100% certainty. But then at what point do you cross the line and say that someone can't defend themselves, you know? And it's always going to be dicey. So you're going to have people disagree. And so you just got to find that common ground. So what mental state says now that you cannot own a weapon? If you're schizophrenic, paranoid schizo, do you get a gun? If you have PTSD flashbacks that are severe, do you get a gun? You know?
Yeah. I think whenever the state has control, that's where we're in danger.
Yeah,
if the state doctors are telling us what diagnosis out of the DSM-5 they think is a go or no-go when it comes to guns, I'm not for that.
Yeah, they're bought.
Yeah.
They are owned monetarily. So, no, I don't want that to be in their hands because then you get corruption. And we've seen corruption all throughout, you know, the past at least decade or more. So, yeah.
I'm with you, for sure. There's another bill that has to do with government reform that the Hawaii House of Representatives is thinking about introducing, and that one would be marketable skills job training. Some are for it, some are not so for it, and that requires those incarcerated. Excuse me, this isn't talking about government reform, this is talking about crime and rehabilitation. It requires those who are incarcerated who lack marketable skills on the job to basically get that training in the prison system. What do you think about that?
So a lot of people that I've talked with when it comes to like my line of work, because I work with people that are like super far left versus super far right, they bring up other countries, and I can't remember the exact country right now. So once again, I say you gotta take it with a grain of salt. Quick Google search will easily, you know, find it, but it might be in the Netherlands. But it's like a rehabilitation. You know, so when someone's in jail or someone's in prison, they're being rehabilitated because do you want this person who, you know, broke into a grocery store because they're hard on cash and they're robbing it for money? Do you want that person to always be breaking into grocery stores because they've got no other skills, they've got no other thing to provide for their family? And I'm not trying to justify why they broke into a grocery store, but do you always want them to be violent? Do you always want them to be running away in prison, or do you want people to have a second chance? So it just depends on the avenue that we're taking. I would hope that we could have something where people can be rehabilitated and truly changed. But when you get things like repeat offenders, I know people are angry about that. And how do you stop that? How do we know someone's truly rehabilitated?
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
How do we know that someone's truly been rehabilitated? Prayerfully by God, and hopefully that there can be a process in the prison system that's helping them. And that's what this bill would look at. Thank you, Casey, so much for joining our show. Thank you, everybody from Big Island, Maui, Oahu, and Kauai for tuning in on The Answer. This show is called Capital Convo. You're on the station AM 690, FM 94.3. Please join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this time, 5 to 6 p.m. Thank you so much for having us, and aloha.
Thanks for having me.